You hear us?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
All right.
Good morning. The time is 9 a.m. I call to order the September 3rd, 2026 meeting of the Contractors State Licensure. 8:30. 8:30. I'm Alan Guy, CSLB's board chairman. We're broadcasting live from Cynthia Strong's in Las Vegas, with public participation also available from Microsoft Teams and from CSLB headquarters in Sacramento. Good morning to those joining remotely right home. As a reminder, the Nevada State Contractor Quorum will begin meeting at 9 a.m. And our first two CSLB items will conclude before the joint agenda begins. Please stand, and I invite Vice Chair Mike Mark to lead the pledge of allegiance. Flag allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Michael. For the record, board members Amanda Gaio, Rodney Cobos, Miguel Villarga, Henry Nutt, and Steve Pinelli can excuse that today. Board member Virginia Wayne is participating in session. I will now turn it over to Executive Analyst Katie Carrasco and conduct CSLB roll call.
Alrighty. Alan Guy.
Aye.
Joelle Barton.
Aye.
Diana Love. Jacob Lopez.
Here.
Michael Mark.
Here.
Omar Passons.
Here.
Joseph Preciado.
Here virtually.
Perfect. Jim Ruane.
Here in Sacramento.
Thomas Ruiz.
Here.
We are a quorum.
Good. Thank you. This is a hybrid meeting. Members of the public joining us via Microsoft Teams may request a comment using the Q&A feature. All participants may press the button. As will be explained by the Madam Board at 9 a.m., you will need to take public comments at the beginning and end of the meeting. California will ask for board and public comment after each meeting. With that, we proceed to agenda item B, public comment for items on the agenda. Introducing agenda item B, for public comment requests for agenda items for a future meeting. The board values public input as part of our consumer protection mission. To allow us enough time to get back our full schedule for this today, I'm limiting public comments to 3 minutes apiece. If your comments don't involve an item on today's agenda, this would be the time where you can make them. If you have comments on one of our agenda items, we encourage you to wait until we get to that item. We will give you an opportunity to make your comments at that time. We also want to ask for your public comment related to the agenda item currently before the board. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits board members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment. And board members are not allowed to act on any item not on today's agenda. Second, if you want the board to discuss the topic not on the agenda, you can advocate to placing that issue on the agenda for future meetings. Finally, if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, you ask that we do not discuss the detail of your case or pending complaint. That's because board members and the judges, and by law, are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record. Members of the public, if you're with us on Teams and would like to make a comment in the Q&A feature, just send the board header and note that you would like to offer public comment. You'll then be prompted so you can be unmuted. We will use the same system throughout the meeting for public comment during each agenda item. Are there any comments from the public here in the room? Seeing none. Are there any comments from the public in the second room? Are there any comments from the public online?
No.
Do we have any board members that would like to place an item on the future agenda? Great. At this time, CSLB will briefly recess until 9 a.m. when the Nevada board arrives with the, if the Nevada board is seated, they will open their meeting and complete its agenda items 1 and 2. So we're going to recess. Thank you.
Of course.
Still here. Yes.
I will call over the September 3rd, 2026 meeting of the Nevada State Contractors Board. Chair Lewis Polish, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Rosario. The notice has been posted.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the notice has been posted on the board's website, the Nevada Public Notice website. Both offices in the Nevada State Contractors Board, and email electronically to persons who have expressed an interest in being informed with their communities.
Thank you, Mr. Rosario. Would you please call the roll?
Yes. Chairman Polish,
Here.
Member Howard, Member Morris,
Here.
Member Legg.
Here.
Member Leggett, here, Member Martin.
Here.
Please note that board member Kevin had been excused.
Thank you. Please note for the record, we have Quorum. Mr. Rosario, would you please read the board's mission statement?
The Nevada State Contractors Board is committed to ensuring the integrity and professionalism of the construction industry in Nevada. The NSCB has the responsibility to promote quality construction of Nevada licensed contractors through a regulatory licensing system designed to protect and help us compete in development.
Thank you. The Nevada State Contractors Board receives public comment at both the beginning and at the end of each meeting, providing members of the public with opportunities to address the board. Now is the time for public comment. The board values public input and welcomes public comment. To allow us enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today, I will be limiting public comment to 3 minutes apiece. There are a few rules that apply. First, the Nevada law prohibits board members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment, and we are not allowed to act on any item not on the agenda. Secondly, if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you do not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That is because the board members may be judges in the matter and by law not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record of the case. Is anyone present to offer public comment? If so, please come up to the microphone.
and identify yourself, please.
Had to turn on there. Sorry about that. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Congratulations, I believe, on the new appointment. Let me correct myself, Chair of Nevada, because I believe probably Chair of California is here as well. Yes, I apologize, I have no recognition. Members of the committee, thank you for your time. Robert Diaz, representing the sheet metal workers, Smart, Local 88, here in Las Vegas. I wanted to talk on agenda item B. Trying to do my best. Look at strategies to identify and address unlicensed contractors. While we have both boards in the room, all too often doing compliance in Southern Nevada, we find that California contractors are here doing work with a California contractor's license recognized by your appropriate board, but not by Nevada's. I know the governor recently passed a bill here for Nevada legislation that affords some inner changes between the two agencies, but we want to recognize that while doing heavy commercial, I don't think that covers a residential market. And some of the umbrellas that we've tried to cast over that, utilizing our 624 NRIS chapter, that's kind of fell on deaf ears. We've addressed a few of those concerns in past board meetings. We want to make sure that while we have both agencies in the room and that agenda items coming up, we got a chance to discuss how to appropriately deal with some of the licensed contractors recognized by California, but unlicensed while doing work in the state of Nevada that we also find, or all too often find doing it here. Thank you.
Anybody else? Intersection. We're gonna get to know you.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Jason Haynes. My name is Jason. I'm victim of a licensed Nevada contractor. I'm filing a complaint with the sport. On August 19th, my contractor was disciplinary. The next day, I flew to Reno, stood at your board meeting and showed your own documents. My contractor and I went on a board revoked. After that, an LCC was formed by his ex-wife with her as the trade qualifier. Then the entity's name was changed, same Nevada business ID. The contractor had his managing member, and shortly after that, the lay managing member, all that with secretary same director of dates. This is our 5 chapter. This board revoked can be hold on license again. I gave you all that promise. Nobody from this board contacted me. The next morning, I checked the website that we have done every day for almost a year. Normally, I search that company and 4 licenses come up. 2 under the old name, 2 under the current name. That morning, all 4 came under the old name. 2 under the old name, 2 under the current, excuse me. That morning, all came under the 2 they have, which is, excuse me. That morning, all 4 came up under the old name, including the 2 that just been working about 2 days prior. Under the old name. A name that the entity is not legally carried since the date was changed years ago. So if somebody goes looking for my contractor or for his company, what comes back is the old name. Nothing on the list carries his name. But that click on one of those licenses at the very top, your record says the business brand new name is the current one. Your system knows your search does not show. And citations are attached to the licenses. Other companies in the same situation, border vouchers like this one, still show the citation from the license. These do not. I can tell these licenses now are listed away the highest thing from going from. I stayed your podium on Thursday. By Friday morning at 7 a.m. to record the all happens. I'll explain them. I explain them. This is not the only question. You're most stand for law enforcement, this board is not the government. That was on film, that was on information. Why would an agency say that? This board tells police it's not the government. It board that trespass as citizen from Charles to bring a camera into the public meeting. A search page that will not show who owns 2 remote licenses. I have the documentation that's what I don't keep bringing in. I'm not going to connect the dots for you. You have investigators who can do that. The bigger question is, who's investigating your investigators? Thank you.
Public comment, Noah Allison, Nevada State Contractors Board Council for the record. California also has a consent agenda. We have a consent agenda every month at our board meeting where we list hundreds of items that the board passes through on the consent agenda. And the consent agenda does not merely pass through approvals. The consent agenda passes through all the staff decisions. And those staff decisions often include tabling the application. And in certain cases, without getting into detail, sometimes contractors, due to disciplinary, they have their applications tabled, means they're set aside and not passed through. And that is put on the consent agenda. And if you read the consent agenda, it will say tabled. And that means that when the consent agenda is approved by the board, that the application is deemed tabled. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allison, for the clarity. Are there any more comments from the public? Any comments from any of our board members? Great, thanks. All right, I'd like to welcome the California State Licensing Board for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to meet with the board members and representatives from other states. These conversations provide a valuable opportunity to share ideas, learn from one another, and discuss the challenges and opportunities we face in our respective jurisdictions. Today's meeting is a great opportunity to learn about California's experience, share some of our experiences, and an open discussion about issues that are important to our boards and professionals that we regulate. We appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, and we look forward to holding productive conversations and strengthening the relationship between our boards. With that, welcome and thank you again for being here. Thank you, ladies. We will now proceed with agenda item 3, discussion regarding CSLB and NSCB operational and structural comparison. For this item, Interim Executive Officer Paul Rosario with the Nevada State Contractors Board, the Registrar David Boyd with the California State Licensing Board, will provide a joint discussion comparing the structures and operational frameworks of our boards. Paul and Dave.
Can I jump in here real quick? I'm Alan Guy. Thank you, Chair Paul. Alan Guy, Chair of California State Contractors License Board. I would just like to take a moment and acknowledge you guys for having us out here. So it was great to see you talk about basically very what that would be helpful. I would also like to acknowledge and sincerely thank Interim Executive Officer Paul Rosario, former Executive Officer David Ehar for rendering today's meeting probation at contact here in Las Vegas, as well as the special coordinator that involved with the agency. Their efforts have significantly enriched the joint meeting, and I'm honored to open California design instead of being here this week that we continue this effective long-standing collaboration. So, for the future, thank you.
Mr. Rosario?
Yeah, maybe Mr. Paul, missions. You want to go first? Yeah. Right. No, I think we okay. That's fine. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Paul Rosario, and I'm the Interim Executive Officer for the Nevada State Contractors Board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Provide an overview of the board on licensing requirements, consumer protections, and recent trends involving solar complaints. Regarding licensing, the Nevada State Contractors Board currently has 19,046 active contractors and 421 inactive contractors, for a total of 19,467 licensed contractors in Nevada. The current application fee is $300, and the initial license fee is $600. Contractor licenses must be renewed every 2 years, and the current renewal fee is $600. Renewal fees have not been increased in more than 25 years. The board is currently working to increase renewal fees by $150 per year, up to the statutory limit of $900 every 2 years. The Contractors Board is funded through licensing and renewal fees paid by Nevada contractors. Regarding a handyman exemption, you gotta have a handyman exemption for projects that are less than $1,000 of labor and materials. Handyman may perform small projects under the threshold as long as the work does not involve electrical, plumbing, or HVAC, or required a building permit. How do we achieve restitution? Should a contractor fail to execute the contract, a homeowner may seek relief from the board for a disciplinary administrative hearing. If the case would go to an administrative hearing, the administrative law judge finds in favor of the claimant, he may order the respondents to pay the homeowner an amount. If the contractor fails to pay the homeowner, the claimant may seek relief up to $40,000 from the Nevada Residential Recovery Fund. Should the respondent's license still be in active status, the board will seek revocation of a license for failure to comply with the order of the board. License requiring guilty endorsement. The Nevada State Contracting Board currently works with 12 states, including California, regarding licensure requiring endorsement. These states have similar licensing requirements as Nevada. This allows qualified contractors licensed in participating states to pursue Nevada licensure through the endorsement process. Simply because a licensee is licensed in one of these 12 states does not allow them to operate or contract in Nevada without a Nevada state contractor's license. Complaints regarding solar. From June 1st, 2025 to April 30th, 2026, the Nevada State Contractors Board received a total of 1,554 complaints involving licensed and unlicensed contractors. Out of these complaints, 119 were related to solar. However, during Nevada's fiscal year, July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, the Nevada State Contractors Board received 1,648 complaints involving licensed and unlicensed contractors. During the 2023 fiscal year, 2023-2024 fiscal year, the board received 309 solar-related complaints. 247 solar-related complaints during the 24-25 fiscal year, and 121 solar-related complaints during the 25-26 fiscal year. This is, you can see over the last few years, there has been a significant decline in solar complaints, which was a significant problem for the board. But to the point where the solar contractors represented less than 5% of our contractors, regarding the recovery fund, they were responsible for over 40% of the complaints that were coming into the recovery fund. And that has drastically changed for the better. The federal, one of the reasons why the decline is the solar tax credit. The solar tax credit expired on December 31st, 2025. And during Nevada's 2025 legislative session, Senate Bill 379 established stronger consumer protection requirements for residential solar agreements. These requirements took effect on October 1st, 2025. New requirements provide greater transparency for consumers and give customers additional time to cancel certain solar agreements. So solar companies may require an additional deposit, but the deposit cannot exceed $1,000 or 10% of the total contract price, whichever is less. And that's all across the board in for all contractors in Nevada. For a solar purchase lease or power purchase agreement, customers under 60 years old have 3 business days to cancel without penalty. And customers 60 years old or older have 10 business days to cancel without. Regarding our residential recovery fund, the residential recovery fund was created to assist homeowners who experience financial losses as a result of the actions of licensed residential contractors. The fund is available only to homeowners who own a single-family residence, entered into a contract with a licensed residential contractor, suffered actual damages, and exhausted all other means of recovery. The fund is not available to homeowners who have hired unlicensed contractors or to individuals who do not reside in single-family residences. Since the Residential Recovery Fund was established in 1999, the board has awarded more than $17 million to Nevada homeowners who have suffered losses. The fund currently has a balance of approximately $5 million. In closing, the Nevada State Contractors Board remains committed to protecting Nevada consumers, supporting licensed contractors, and ensuring that contractors operate in compliance with the Nevada law. And thank you again. I'd like to turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, California Nevada board members. You'll see that California and Nevada have a lot of similarities. And when I look at the increase in contractor licenses in our states, it's interesting, we're both up about a little over 600 for the last fiscal year. You'll see in California, we have a substantial drop in inactive. not sure why that is, but overall it's positive to be increasing our licensed population. And looking at the application fee and the renewal fee, we did a fee study in 2022. Well, it became in effect in 2022, and it's proven very successful. And that our revenue now is a little over $100 million, and we have an 8-month reserve. One thing that was notable to mention this morning, though, is we had to increase our spending authority by $2 million for IT projects. That's a real focus that we have now, is looking for opportunities to automate, looking for the advantages of increasing our IT expenditures to be more efficient, more accessible to the public and to our applicants. In researching the handyman exception, we did look at Nevada's minor work exemption threshold of $1,000, and ours previously was $500, so we raised it to the same as Nevada. And there is some restrictions to that. One is the work can't require a permit, and there cannot be employee labor. For that is, we find that in California, you're not likely to get a workers' comp policy if you have workers. But it's been interesting to look at the consumer filed complaints against unlicensed practitioners or operators, if you will. Historically, it was around 25% of our complaints were unlicensed. And we found that since changing that threshold, it's now reduced to 17%. As far as reciprocity, we have reciprocity with 5 states this time. And we're taking a real close look at those agreements. We've had reciprocity agreements in California since 1991. The requirement to have reciprocity with California is that you have to be licensed in good standing for 5 years in the state, and the trade exam has to be equivalent to California's. We recently had a stakeholder meeting, and it was brought up, when's the last time you looked at the other states' trade exams? Well, probably not since 1991. And so that's an opportunity to take a look at those. We're also going to take a look at the complaint ratio. Are we receiving complaints against contractors that had the trade exam waived? And also, we're looking at the exam itself. Are the code violations similar in California as to the other states? So at this time, we won't be entering into any more reciprocity agreements until we come up with the implementation plan and bring it back to our licensing. Solar in California is very challenging. We have a similar bill to the Nevada bill, and it did not get through the legislature. The board was a CSLB was a co-sponsor for that bill. And it would have been very helpful because where we find consumer harm is how these solar contracts are written. A lot of them now are PPAs where the kilowatt hour charge exceeds what the public utility would charge. We have the financing agreements where the contractor is paid directly from the lender, often before the work is done. That's very troubling, and we're currently receiving more than 1,400 consumer complaints a month, and 240 of those are against solar contracts. So it's something we're really focused on. How are we going to reduce that number of complaints? There's too many unhappy solar customers in California. That's not to suggest that a lot of solar projects work out very well. Consumers are satisfied, but many aren't. And one of the common denominators with the increase in complaints is reselling the contract. So we're taking a look at whether or not we need more regulation of our home improvement salespersons. And for restitution, a few years ago, we had a one-time appropriation of $5 million. The Governor Newsom put that in the trailer bill in the budget, and that was very effective in helping solar consumers that have been defrauded. Many of them were low income from different disadvantaged communities, so it's definitely needed. Where we found difficulty with that is that we had contractors that were receiving the loan proceeds, not performing the work. And the solar fund made those victims whole, those consumers whole, and those cases were not prosecuted by the DA. And so that was the downside to it. We're very focused on obtaining restitution for consumers. You see, last fiscal year, we were able to recover over $20 million. So that's positive. But at the same time, we ask ourselves, why did we have consumers eventually injured to that amount? Because in California, residential remodeling, I think is similar to what Paul was just talking about. That deposit can't be more than $1,000 and subsequent payments cannot exceed the value of the work. And so our licensed contractors, they're doing residential remodeling or residential work or following that. The consumer would be in control of the money and we wouldn't have this level of natural harm. And so it's a real focus today is issuing letters of admonishment, getting complaint disclosure out so that these contractors understand they can't be front loading the contract. They're in fact giving credit to the customer by doing the work and then being paid for it. So just along with what Paul said with Nevada, we are 100% focused on public protection and we certainly look forward to learning some of your best practices today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Thank you, Mr. Rosario. We'll move on to item number 4, which is the discussion regarding multi-state and in-state unlicensed practice enforcement and coordination. Item A is national enforcement operations to combat unlicensed practice. And then item B would be strategies to identify and address unlicensed practice. This agenda item addresses enforcement coordination related to unlicensed practice across and within state lines, which again is a direct, along with your comments, Mr. Floyd, of how we need to do as much as we can together, right? I mean, our states we're touching, obviously, we have a lot of individuals we get from California, which we appreciate in some parts. We appreciate the volume of people. But it does help with the enforcement side and just be able to trying to do this and hopefully protect the consumer. So along those lines, I'd like to turn it over to CSLB.
Okay, we got to take a comment.
Oh, Dave, I'm sorry.
California has opened up for that agenda B real quick before we get to the next one. Very gorgeous. They're here in any public comment here? Teams? I thought it was pretty interesting. I read the percentages. We hold at 8% of complaints compared to the United Contractor. So we have 21,000 a year to 1,500, but compared to the overall licensed population. 0.5% because I'm pretty good. Yeah, it's on the interesting part though is I think our store complaints are up. We're 11 of our complaints is 11%, and you guys 7% is falling. The same federal tax credit. I don't know if anyone had any comments on that, but that's an answer like that.
Yeah, we.
Sure.
You got
I think the biggest thing that we did in the last place is says we made the financing follow the same rules contractors and problems. And that has made it dramatic. I think because the financiers, to me, are a large part of the problem in solar. If they're paying the solar contractor before the homeowner even signed up, the installation's done. So as a solar company, you pay 100% of their money and they're 50% include the work, and then they leave the homeowner paying. And so now the financing on that it under the same, has to follow the same rules as like $1,000. The contractor only get $1,000 deposit from, and they have the homeowner. I believe the way it's set up now is the homeowner actually has to accept the work before they can receive final payment. And those are regulations that have changed in our legislation session, and that one doesn't become effective. When it was June of last year, right? January 1 of this year. January 1 of this year. Yeah, this was when we did our assessment, we only needed legislature every 2 years. So, yeah, but those have made it kind of dramatic to I think it followed the agreement that he just have to follow the money. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Martin. That's definitely correct. We definitely have noticed. I remember a couple of years ago when we met with your board, we were running kind of parallel, the numbers were very similar. It was, almost to the dollar, per case or whatever. And that is definitely the biggest improvement, I think. I think she went in on the head and on the tax credit one way, but just changing stuff legislatively just to close that door dramatically. And I apologize. If anybody had any comments on item number 3, I jumped onto that item number 4. I apologize, but if anybody from the board on our board side or even your guys, if there's any comment on item 3, or I jump ahead again. Hearing and seeing none, and we will move on to item number 4. And then I'll turn it over to CSLB Enforcement Committee Chair Michael Mark, who will lead the California portion of the enforcement discussion and special investigations. Supervisor Luis Rico, who will lead the Nevada portion of the discussion. So, Mr. Michael Mark, you're up.
All right, thank you. Again, Michael Mark, I am the chair of the enforcement committee for California State License Board. There is a PowerPoint in place, but I think we'll go through the PowerPoint first and then we'll do some discussion. And then also I want to recognize in Sacramento, I can't see on the screen, but we have our chief, Keith Rowe in Sacramento, sitting with our board members and moving. So we'll turn it over to the registered vote if he has anything to say, and then Chair Allen Guy, I would assume he's to open something up for us too.
Yeah, if I could, Paul, I guess we can have a little more large process a little bit. And I can tell you, we can all look more first, when we go second. I'm happy to introduce this and go first. No, I mean, that's your slide.
Yeah, we can go first.
That's the kind
We're good to go. Supervisor Rico, go ahead and do.
All right, I'm Luis Rico. I'm the supervisor of the Special Investigations Unit at the Nevada State Contractors Board. Pretty much, it's the criminal section that prosecutes the criminal activity with unlicensed and licensed contractors. Our unit is comprised of 3 investigators. We're all Southern Nevada between Quorum, Mesquite, Laughlin, and the Las Vegas Valley. So it's a small unit, but we do impact a huge portion of the state. Our guys, I'm proud of our investigators. They do a phenomenal job. They're tasked with the monumental portion of going out there and enforcing that and taking down the bad guys. All right, so today, what I'm here for, we're going to talk about some of the trends. One of the major trends that we see here in Southern Nevada and all Nevada that impacts the integrity and the professionalism of our industry. And that's the unlicensed contractor joining with licensed contractors, and that's huge. It impacts the residential, the homeowners, and the businesses. Next. Okay, so unlicensed individuals continue to operate outside the regulatory oversight. They have carte blanche. They feel that they don't have to answer to the Nevada State Contractors Board to follow any of the laws or anything like that. Where they run into some hiccups is when they're doing a project and they need to pull permits for one reason or another. Homeowner goes, "Hey, I need these permits here." They usually get into the dance with they find a licensed contractor to pull those permits. These licensed contractors, 98% of licensed contractors. Yes, sir.
Talk to the microphone.
Okay. Sorry about that. So these licensed contractors, they're the ones out there. There's 98% of licensed contractors that do a phenomenal job. They stay within the rules, the laws of the state of Nevada. There's some 2%, 3% out there that tend to blend those lines and tend to bend those rules for them, and they get into contract with unlicensed people and sell the license. They go ahead and say, "Hey, I'll let you use my license for 39 feet. As long as you don't need to pull permits or anything, I'll do that for you." Okay. This does create a problem for the homeowner who believes that they're going into business with a licensed contractor. Usually, the unlicensed contractor will go ahead and use a letterhead, the license number of that licensed contractor, and make the homeowner believe, "Hey, you're dealing with a licensed person all the way through. You're going to be covered if anything goes wrong. You're licensing on," which they're not, and that puts the liability on the homeowner once again. This creates a more difficult environment. Unfortunately, because the unlicensed individual may appear to be operating under the umbrella of a legitimate licensed contractor. This is very important. The license stuff can become the vehicle for unlicensed activity. Licensed contractors conspiring with unlicensed people. NRS 2430114. That's conspiring with an unlicensed person for one unauthorized act. We also have 3015. That's failure to check license and knowingly entering into a contract with an unlicensed individual. Licensed contractors provide estimates, contracts, invoices, and documentation. They may not be at the homeowner's place of residence. They'll go ahead and let the unlicensed individual pretend that they're working for that contractor. Licensed contractors create the appearance of legitimate authority. They make their own money believe that, hey, you are working with us. You're working with a licensed contractor. And then the time comes when there's an issue with workmanship and they contact us. When that happens, our compliance section will start the investigation and then realize, well, I know, who did you contract with? This is my contract. This is the license number. They have everything on there that's legit. We'll contact the licensed contractor. So they say, hey, we're not working with this guy. We don't know what's going on. They're trying to tell us that they have nothing to do with this person. Next thing you know, we find out that the unlicensed person was the one who was contracting and getting paid. The investigation starts to roll over to our side where we start the investigation. We contact the licensed individual and don't adamantly say they're not, we don't know this person at all. We go into the meeting and we follow the money trail, we bank subpoenas and so forth, and we find out that, hey, yeah, they know each other one way or the other during cahoots. Next page, please. Case study here recently, I like this one here. Involved licensed contractor with 3 non-licensed individuals entities. That resulted in 6 alleged violations. The investigative indicators include estimated, prepared for specific projects, identification of unlicensed individuals in connection with the work verification. I'll tell you the story. It's the homeowner complaint saying that we have an issue with workmanship. We contacted the licensed individual. They said they didn't do the work. Homeowner identified the person who they paid to do the work. We followed up, found out this guy does not have a license. This happened 3 times, 3 different residents and so forth. We pulled the licensed person in. He adamantly said, hey, I don't know who this person is. I've never heard of him. We called, we pulled bank subpoenas from the unlicensed person. On that bank subpoena, we pulled signature records and signature card. Found out that the license, the owner of the license company was on the same signature card as the unlicensed person. You know, that turned criminal. We then prosecuted, but actually it's still on the compliance side. We're waiting to file criminal charges against the licensed individual. That's one of the main things we have. We currently have some other cases in the AG's office right now for the same thing. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands, up to $1 million taken from homeowners. So this is coming from the our criminal section. Our 3 guys, 3 investigators are doing a bang-up job doing catching these criminals. But the most important thing is this does affect the integrity and the professionalism of the industry. And we, the board here, we're here to protect that integrity and professionalism of the industry. We're also here to protect the welfare, health, and safety of the public out there. You know, not only when you're working with an unlicensed person, chances are they're not licensed, they're not appointed. And something would happen on their property, their homeowners on the hook for that. And you know, we're trying to prevent that. And put stats from 2023, which was a busy year for us. 22-23 fiscal year, we had 524 criminal cases of our contract without license. This last year, 25 prosecution Last year, 25-26, it went down to 359. So our guys are doing a bang job, doing a great job catching the criminals out here. You know, for a small group, small unit that we are, I'd like to think that we are making an dent in helping and protecting the industry and the public. That's likely. Now, this is what makes it difficult. The biggest thing is it's on paper. We have to have the cooperation of the homeowner. Once we get the owner in, once we get the money drill, we're able to put pieces together and we're able to go out and you know, attack this something that's like this. Proactive enforcement. This is what I like. This is what we do. What I like to do about this job here is our investigators go out once a week. Right, we are a 3-man unit, but we go out once a week and we do unannounced job sites. We show up, we contact the project manager, we identify ourselves, and we ask them, hey, who's on your subcontractors? Let's need to see who's there. Most of the time, they're cooperative. Every once in a while, we run into some resistance, and that's when we know something's not right. When we show up and people don't want to work with us. The big thing coming up here for us right now is NSCB, is our operations. And this is where we have a little bit of fun. Our investigators, we keep a list throughout the year of who we want to target unlicensed contractors. With the help of our board, we're able to get a vacant office building, and we invite these unlicensed contractors to come in and give us the bid. We get them on film, get them giving us bids, and within 24 hours, we usually have most of the bids that are in, and we go after the current once a year for a contractor and other license. It's a small little thing we use, but it makes a big impact. Word gets out, hey, you gotta be careful with who you're dealing with. You know, contractors do talk amongst each other what's going on, and sometimes you see a dip. With people returning our phone calls, people on unlicensed contractors willing to engage with us. Next slide, please. So some of our one of the other things we use is our lead sheets, our anonymous tips that come in. We can go out there and respond to everything that comes in right away, but mind you, once again, we are a 3-man unit. And we try to get out there as soon as we can. Most of the time, with time the complaint is made, by the time it's provided to us, the work has already been done. There's no one on the property anymore. You know, sometimes when you show up and there are on a site, and we're able to take enforcement action there. Next one, please. Just this is about, I think one of the reasons why the numbers have been downwards in the last couple of years is our community outreach. You know, we do go out and meet with the public, educate the public. That's a big thing that we do. We get homeowner association safety fairs and so forth. I like this because our investigators actively in the community educating our homeowners. A lot of these homeowners are senior citizens, which, you know, they're one of the most vulnerable parts of our community. For some reason, their senior citizens have become more trusting people. And it pains me when I have a complaint as a senior citizen and you find out they gave half of their life savings away to an unlicensed person. You know, so we're out there, we're with the community, we're working with local jurisdictions, Metro, for Tuesdays, safety fairs. We have an upcoming Summerlin Homeowner Association fair in the next couple of weeks, and that's a pretty big one for someone. And we have an opportunity to reach out there and make an impact with our homeowners. And the California and Nevada is thrown together. I heard from the gentleman here about the unlicensed or licensed contractors coming into Southern Nevada and doing unlicensed work here. That is true. We do run into from time to time. When we do get the notification and someone gives us a call, we do send somebody out to that location to find the unlicensed person. We have in the past found licensed California licensed contractors in Nevada working. We've addressed that. We've went after them as an unlicensed contractors here. We've also given a call to the California state contractors or the investigators out there and let them know what we have. I wish maybe we can get together and come up with a follow-up or a procedure to, I don't know, we have a compact agreement if we go after an unlicensed California licensed contractor here in Nevada with an unlicensed work, but maybe we can find a pathway that somehow can affect their California license up there. That's something to think about and work in the future. And it's pretty short and simple. That's what I have for on my side. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have right now. Reference the unlicensed licensed contractors working together. Yes, sir.
Mr. Rosario was talking about the restitution fund, and it only goes to folks that hire licensed contractors. Do you permit these people doing like a hybrid with an unlicensed?
No, unfortunately, that's one of the downside. Homeowners things are protected because you think they're working with a licensed contractor, but the work is actually being done by unlicensed people. And so the homeowner is pretty much left, out of that, recovery.
We'll be following up on something you said, in the last legislative session, so it's for the prior public comment. This legislature enacted that new law that says that if, California or somebody from out of state comes in here and it doesn't have a license, that the contractors board can table their application for like maybe a year, I think, or something like that. So there is that happens sometimes. You get somebody who comes in on a big commercial job, they know they shouldn't have done it, and then they try to get a license and kind of take action.
They would have to wait for a year.
Right, well. Thank you. Any other comments from our board members? Anybody? Thank you, Mr. Reed. More importantly, thank you and your team for what they do. I know the stand operations are very productive, and I personally can guarantee you they are out doing job site business because members of my team, my staff, let me know when you guys are out on job sites. So I do know that you are doing. I think the more you can do, the better. And I understand there's a small staff there. Hopefully, we get that fixed for you guys in the near future.
Thank you.
But again, appreciate you and your team. Thank you. There's no other comments, so I'm going to turn it back over to Dave. I think is the proper procedure. Sorry about not understanding your guys' proper procedure. So I believe her. Yeah. So we will now, and what we'll do is we'll go first. We'll clear the board so to be found. Remember, you, Dave, and then you guys go before we get to. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, let's turn it over. Thank you.
Right, sounds good. So this is one area where we do have similarities. We also run leads. We get leads from industry. We conduct sweeps. We generally do our sweeps with other state agencies. We're looking at unsafe work conditions. We're looking at tax withholding, whether they have workers' compensation insurance, and conducting the undercover sting operations. It was interesting in the LA County area where we have the wildfire rebuild. We've done a few stings, and the last one we did, we had unlicensed people come out and bid for $400 or $500 for factory built homes. It was amazing. The dollar amount was very high, and they don't have a contractor's license. And if it's a declared disaster area, it is a felony to contract without a license. So those cases are being prosecuted. It's kind of interesting. We talk about doing things jointly. We've had success over the years in conducting joint sting operations, conduct one in Nevada, one in California. We have a former board member who did let me know his house is still available and it's almost on the border in Nevada. So, this would be an opportunity. We should think about doing a sting operation and coming back. And we've had some very interesting operations where we've had the same person, bid on both sides of the state unlicensed. So that could be our goal for our next thing. That's pretty just we don't have a slideshow today, but one thing we discussed yesterday is an unlicensed practice study. Board member Michael Mark's idea that we should, initially we're trying to hire an outside consultant. We hired at the university, they started it, but we finished it with our test development staff. And it was really eye-opening because one, we looked at our consumer file complaints. So we use that and extrapolate how many we received, how many jobs were going on, how many licensing complaints we got. We looked at city business license records for 36 cities. And there's a law in California that says you have to include your license number when you take out a business license. Well, most people don't do that. We're looking at that data and also looking at employer records, the Excel data records that tend to be, I think most states are using that. We've come up with 70,000 unlicensed contractors in California. It could be more than that, but that's a lot of unlicensed contractors. And I think I've been correct to mention unlicensed advertising, online advertising like Craigslist. Look at Craigslist. How many people are unlicensed on Craigslist and don't have a license number included or a name style that matches? Very significant. And so that's going to provide the foundation for looking at getting more staff. It'll help us to work with cities at the local government level to have information sharing, share the data electronically. So we're excited about that. Work with different associations to tailor our workshops. That's something we initially learned from Nevada. We're doing the monthly applicant workshops. We do those in California, English and Spanish. We want to now expand them to have more of a presence statewide, focus on specific industries, focus on the landscaping industry, maybe start there. They have in California, they call it Helping Hands program. Very effective in helping someone that may start as a gardener doesn't require a license, but now that they're doing landscaping and need a license, let's help them to comply with the law. So, I think that's pretty exciting. If it gives us additional resources, either for staffing or for an outreach campaign, that's all positive. We have 27 dedicated investigators for proactive enforcement. The problem is we got 58 counties. We only have one investigator per every county, so we probably need to get a few more. That's kind of the snapshot of doing with proactive enforcement. I would ask Board Member Michael Mark talk about the success that he's had bringing others into the I would say into the challenge of addressing unlicensed practice and the underground common.
Yeah, great. I think just a couple of key thoughts off of what David said. Our SWIFT team, that is our proactive enforcement, 27 from the entire state of California. Here's a need for help from Nevada. If anyone in Nevada has properties that they own in California, we're looking for sting locations. Yeah. We are paying $750 for 2 days if we have property in California. So again, that is something that's always needed. These properties to have sting locations. So that part is very key. I think with the study that David mentioned, that we did in-house, 70,000 estimated unlicensed contractors. 70,000 potential unlicensed contractors in the state of California, just per our study. And yesterday at the board meeting, the board took steps, including doing like a BPA, a budget change proposal, and it's going to be sent to our executive committee to really try to figure out how we can tackle this. And as you saw in the snapshot, when you have 70,000 unlicensed, if we can get them all licensed, Nevada, the same thing for budget purposes, how much of your budget actually will become within house, right? If you have 70,000 times the $500 average, that's a good chunk of money. So that is why the California State License Board is sending it to our executive committee to help figure out the budget change proposal that was needed to hire these new licensed staff and enforcement staff for this. Which is just really key. And that study took us a good 2+ years to get a study done. It just shows how long it takes to get a really sophisticated study. Now, when David talks about what California State License Board has been doing for joint industry, one of the key things that we have in California is a good network of like-minded agencies who are trying to tackle consumer protection and the underground economy. One of the things that we have set up was with potential other labor compliance agencies throughout the state of California. We host, CSLB takes the lead, working with our building trades and the compliance representatives and nonprofits out there that are focused on the underground economy. We host a session where we bring all of the state agencies that's included within that labor enforcement task force, OSHA, EDD, DLSC for the state of California, and we have a joint table where the 100 individuals, or the last thing we had was a little over 100 individuals who were able to ask questions directly to the state agencies that were in attendance, including the Contractor State License Board. And that was so helpful for the consumer protection throughout the state of California. So again, hosting an industry meeting of industry stakeholders whose focus is underground economy in one meeting with all the state agencies present in the state of California, that's been really, really helpful. There was the mention of for us, we call it a responsible management officer, RMO, and how one individual might be using their license for additional unlicensed activity. Nevada presented on that. We're starting to see that as the same issue within us, and the board that took action at yesterday's meeting too. Chair Alan Guy led another different industry stakeholder meeting where contractor associations attended and said this could be a potential issue, and now I think it's being sent to the executive committee to kind of have a focus on this and how we can tackle that industry and figure out ways to, as a pilot program, our chief, our licensing chief, Carol Gagnon.
Yep.
Apologize, I pushed for last again. Is looking for a pilot study on how once someone gets to the third and fourth license that they're vouching for, we need to really start looking into it. So we're starting to do that. I think when we're talking about like solar, if we're having the same issue in solar, but it's a lot of it is the one licensed contractor potentially having many complaints, right? It's that multiple offenders unit. So in the state of California, I don't know, 3 years ago, we set up that multiple offenders unit where licensed contractors with many complaints from the same contractor from different consumers. We set up a multiple offender unit where it's their job to help make sure that we're tackling and getting in front of these individuals and not just be kind of like the arbitration consumer quality control that's needed. So for us, those are kind of the items that we're working on as an unlicensed practice enforcement and obviously coordination. Lake Tahoe, Reno is so close. We have the Las Vegas area and SoCal for California. So any chances where we work together is always very appreciative, and we appreciate the Nevada board for being here. David, anything to add?
No, I think you've said it very well.
Is there any board comment?
I have one. Was mentioned, do we have, like, if one of our contractors, licensed contractors was working in California, unlicensed, if they got busted there and then we found out about, do we have any means to go discipline towards them?
Yes. And so there's reciprocity. What would happen is California would have to take action against them for that activity that be reported up.
And what could we do to that what would be our options?
Sure. Well, potentially, if it's a criminal history issue, that could be brought up from the board to take action against that contractor. We know about that they've been convicted of a misdemeanor and involved in contracting. Or we can bring it to the board and the board can take action against that license. It were from potentially, putting them on some sort of probation or even revocation of this suspension.
Yeah, it would be like a renewal thing. So during the renewal, they report that.
Obviously, this is a topic that's come up public comments come up 2 or 3 times here. Don't know if it's something we can obviously handle right now, but maybe we look at getting both of our boards to where the punishment for the crime is the same, correct? If somebody's working from California with a California license in our state that's unlicensed here, we would appreciate something to happen on your side or vice versa, right? I think what we need to do is kind of put our heads together and make sure legally that's handled properly, but I think if we get on the same page, it's going to help mitigate that, because right now, the slap on the wrist or whatever's happening is not good, right? And I know for a fact it is a topic that's come up. I've had phone calls about this same issue probably 2 or 3 times in the last couple of months. So I think maybe it's something we can put together, Dave and Paul or whoever down the road.
Put an action item together on it.
Yeah, they're on the same page.
Yeah, but you can buy up to $50,000 from this construction. And whether to pay them, they don't pay them through us. Definitely something they could be utilized by California State Action License. There's more clause obviously in our statute. It's another contractor for license working that we would potentially utilize that clause. They mentioned this clause.
And obviously, I think one thing too is if you heard us saying, there's potentially 70,000 unlicensed contractors. So we're talking about the licensed ones here, what you guys are talking about, right? The same thing is probably happening where there's unlicensed contractors in Nevada that are doing work and vice versa. So sometimes you always have to focus on the underground economy. And I get it. If they're not licensed, if they're licensed in California, but they're not licensed in Nevada, they are unlicensed. The same vice versa. So like maybe a potential, I know David had some thoughts on this too.
Yeah, I did. And from Sacramento, and we have Steve Grover, Enforcement Chief Mike Jaminski there. I think 7103 is our discipline professions code that allows us to take action on our licensee if their disciplinary action is taken in another state. I'm just not sure if that would include unlicensed practice. We also want to mention the National Association of State Contracting Licensing Agencies, in which California and Nevada are members of. They have a database for putting complaint information in. That could really be leveraged. But I think that can be very effective when somebody is unlicensed or has their license revoked in another state. So that we're aware that should they apply in California, they have to look forward to sharing more of our unlicensed practice data when we do issue a citation to somebody that may well be in Nevada. I know that we do find that they're in Nevada and Arizona. Those are the 2 main states where they may also contract. I don't know, Steve, if you can maybe, when's the next NASPA multi-state thing? Is that in October?
It's this month, Dave.
Yeah, so we're real excited about that, where all the states many states, the licensed contractors get together. I don't recall how many. You get a lot of exposure, a lot of media coverage for that. Because if the state licenses contracts, they understand the benefit of the license. So I think that's a real positive. Is Nevada participating in that this year?
Yes, we will.
Any other board comment?
I think it was interesting to hear from Nevada about the license, a small percentage of the licensed contractor community, when a licensed contractor, as we're talking about things. I would ask, we're seeing a similar thing, but we're seeing matchmaking companies where people come in and get asked with first of all, licensing match with somebody else. You want to talk about that a little more, Dave? Well, it was a big issue that day, and I'm starting to see more and more of it involved there.
Yeah, and I briefly discussed this with Paul or other Nevada staff, where you look at people, applicants' financials, so that's effective. But in California, we have an ability for somebody to qualify multiple licenses by simply marking the application. They have 20% equity, and many of them are not doing that truthfully. Now we've got what I call matchmaking entities that have been established where someone wants to set us a contracting corporation. They wouldn't otherwise qualify to obtain a license if they couldn't find someone that had previously or already is licensed to join that corporation. And often it's somebody that's a retired contractor that won't be actively involved in the contracting activity. And this is a driver of our increase in consumer complaints, when there's nobody actively working with that entity that has the experience that is necessary. And so we really got to take a hard look at that and figure out a solution. It could be additional bonding, where they be responsible, if you're qualified the license, you're already responsible for a $25,000 bond, maybe it should be a $50,000 bond. If you're going to do qualified more than 2 licenses. Or we're also going to be going back and looking at other licenses they qualify to make sure they do have the 20% equity. They're going to have to prove it. And if they don't, that's a violation that can often results in the revocation of every license they're on. So it's a serious problem.
Thank you. Any other board comment on the enforcement item? Seeing none, I'll turn back over to the chair, Master Reese here. All excellent. Well, thank you, Mark and Rich Sharp for that presentation. Very good California board members, very good comments. Any public comments in the room on my top teams? But we have one here. State your name, please.
Robert Hayes, representing Machine Workers Small located. Sorry, okay, that's a stripping for you, sorry. Carefully as you can, because it aims for you to publicly appreciate how California conducts business, but the board public comment per agenda item is due to us. I think an important factor to make the discussion on this, obviously we brought up about comment, is to add to addition under licensed contractors. So there's under license meaning going after bids and scopes for $100,000 as an example with a $10,000 bond. It's just as dangerous as unlicensed contractors. All too often we find that general contractors will hire a sub who will then hire a third, second, third tier sub, and as many down the line as possible to meet the qualifications for the C classifications in our area. Industry professional, we have a C21 comes most of our scope. We also cover a C26, which does stations. If you're a C26 contractor and you can outperform some of the C21 coverages, so what you'll do is you'll hire a C21 contractor, knowing your unlimited bond provide you the scope to do the entire project. But this $10,000 bonded contractor could have never been at that or been at that work, given them $10,000 scope. I think it's just as important to add to them to the discussion, although they're not unlicensed, it goes to a different branch. To Mr. Mark's points of utilizing some of the area services, we're part of the building trades. On the dump pool, we continue to say yes to committee chair for the organizing committee that does a lot of this compliance in these areas. We offer those services, to your point, sir, that we do it at a no cost to the state. We
It's Wi-Fi on their end.
On their end.
I think so.
Yeah, good evening.
Oh. Done this a couple times yesterday, we usually get back really quickly this time.
You're going to have the Nevada presentation by the Center for Business and Economic Research, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and will be presented by Andrew Woods. And then the California presentation by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Woods.
Good morning. Thank you all for having me. Thank you to the Nevada State Contractors Board, the California Licensing, California State NSCB Board for having me. My name is Andrew and I'm the director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at the fabulous University of Las Vegas. We've been around for 51 years. We are paid for by you guys. We are taxpayer funded, but we are essentially next to the business school and we work with students, PhDs, and we do consulting on behalf of the public. So thank you for having me here today to talk about the Nevada economy. So I hear there's time crunch, so we go very quickly through this. Speakers, so you guys don't miss the bus. So there are competing areas of the economy. Just to preface this, by the way, Nevada is very much with the U.S. economy. Think about let's say 1 in 4 jobs, $1 in $3 of our economy, and our state budget is topping discretionary spending for consumers. So if you look at what is going on in areas across the country, we have, of course, rising property prices, we have huge blowouts in IPOs. At the same time, we have rising oil prices, we have concern about inflation, and yet consumer spending continues to move forward, but also housing prices have stalled, right? And consumers' ability to buy a house and purchasing power seems to have stalled. So we see this in sentiment about the economy. Next slide. We see it here in Nevada. We poll our own businesses every quarter. We are also very optimistic about the economy. This is from the end of the second quarter of 2026. This is here, this is for Nevada, but you can see it's below 100. People rate below. Our business is very optimistic overall about the economy over the last couple of years. So as you can say is probably inflation. We asked them to do reasons. The overall outcome was initially came kind of applaud by workers. Then was the cost and cost being too high. And now is more about volatility and uncertainty. Just even though they continue to grow their business, even though they report they're still spending dollars, they are also reporting that just that uncertainty alone is really causing them worry and consternation about what to do about the future. Hopefully, PWE and we can put a little bit, certainty and uncertainty, but there's always uncertainty in the economy. It's just the front of mind versus back of mind. So let me talk about the macro economy. Is so much aid to the national economy. We do put that up forecasts. Thank you. And information there. So we do think the economy will continue to grow this year. On the headline, this is after inflation. The economy is forecast to grow up to 2% for the United States. That ties into how we think Nevada is ultimately. We think things will be a little slower next year. Still at 1 point, which is positive growth. And of course, some of those quarterly variations of the more continuous year, they can fluctuate greatly depending on what kind of parts of the balance sheet, essentially the U.S. is growing or is subtracting from the balance sheet. There we go. So what is driving this? Because this is your final sales and purchases. That is extra private consumption. It continues to have incredibly strong growth for across the state. In this state, time to I'm saying yes. You see that there in the fixed investment, but it's still tied also to services. These are consuming goods and services still at a global rate. And that continues to grow the economy, and it continues, on paper, to look very strongly. If you had asked us 2 years ago, we'd be getting these kind of nominal and also real GDP that's well above 2% every quarter. I think we were because of no, but it is. Go next slide. Maybe we're going to speed up for you because I'm also going to so anyway, the inflation, right? We all know we're all feeling, right? If anyone can raise your hand, you'll feel like prices have gone down the last 5 years. And we're going to prices gone down. Yeah, we all feel it. We see it in the economy. This is measuring 3 different parts of inflation. There's many different ways you can find it. I did. We will get into the mechanics. But But what I'm being to what I put value to, what is the producer price index? And I put that after the CPI report, what the producer price index looks like, the whole thing, what businesses are paying, what consumers are paying. And to me, that's very important because that's the decision for many of these small businesses. Are you passing that price on to consumers? And are you eating that at the margin, right? And also what your input costs are. And you can be in the last line, producer price index, it is elevated back up for the last couple of quarters. And that's a concern about where it's pushing up prices that feeds into the consumer. Which if you look at the line baseline, what the personal consumption expenditure index, that's what the Federal Reserve tends to lean on for really looking for inflation, not the PPI. We will get into mechanics if you want to know more about the PPI is the follow-ups we have for you there. The beginning again. So time limited, we'll keep going on inflation past this. One more really there you before. Yeah, one more for them. There you go. So we also see this in government debt and yields, and there's some pushing up the borrowing costs, as you all see. On the left here, this is not just the United States, it's across the world. Government's debt problem, and it is bond market is responding after 5 years of the pandemic. And you see that yields, long-term yields are rising. And then you can see here for your 30-year constant maturity, that has also doubled right in the last 5 years, and that continues to get price pressure. That means borrowing costs for businesses, for consumers, whether it's for a house, whether it's for an automobile, are going up. And we see those price pressures when whether consumers can manage it. And we have these competing narratives between monetary and fiscal policy. Again, it's related to that, how these two different government entities interact will then depend on how much the share comes in here to come to Las Vegas, or up north to Reno, or the mining industry in Alco, and whether the economy is able to struggle on fixed time. This is our global forecast that we take the consensus forecast from our Department of Economics here at UNLV, where we think interest rates are going to go on the short runs, not the 10-year, the 30, but the 2. And this is the federal funds rate. And so this is a consensus forecast. This was put out a year ago. We have the same policy contract that we read here. We put this out once a year. This is our report part. So this is how are we doing a good job looking a year in advance, giving setting expectations for the members of the public, especially for our businesses that we've got. We forecasted basically that, the current is 3.75, we forecasted one rate cut this year. How did I get it at this point? I'm going to say that. I will say no comparison with peers in New York City, we're doing pretty good because they were saying 6 rate cuts or rate cuts. They were promising the moon to do what they do, and that didn't turn out this year, right? We did a lot more conservative approach and a lot more cautious. Corporate earnings continue to be incredibly strong. And this tells us something about the economy that even though consumers see very much stress, they are very much stressed. At the same time, you see it in the majority of these large scale public trade companies, they are doing very well, reporting record earnings quarter was the law for many of them. Of course, how does that play versus the rest of the economy? The economy is more than just AI, right? More than just tech. And especially here in Nevada, we have a lot, drive the economy is leader of the housing industry, the housing industry, of course, in the business and professional services, attorneys, accountants, etc. So the next slide. We also do a little tracker for the Nevada companies that are publicly traded. They're not doing half bad either in the river. 63% of them this last quarter said that they beat or they beat their revenues for the second quarter of 2026. So there's no bad for them. And we don't have to find these companies. I'm sure my counterpart in California talks about this. There's a lot. They've got the 4th largest company, right? But for us, it's not doing too bad. Though if you had put your retirement in an index fund tied to Nevada or some tied to the S&P or tied to the top fund, you would probably do a lot better than if you'd been tied to just Nevada companies. But you didn't know the mechanics there, but just the thing to keep in mind is that we're so strong here in Nevada, but it's also comparison to what you can call it trading. All right, let's get into actually Nevada here, right? And actually talk about our own economy and how we see things going. Now let's set the table of the national picture. Go ahead, Ben. Thank you. So we do the same called the population forecast. We've been doing this since 1997. This is nothing new to back to the Southern Nevada Water Authority for Clark County for Southern Nevada Regional Planning Commission. It's the top of mind thing for all of us is where is our population growing? Because we are a state that grows, growth state where we need people moving here and the population growing in order to supply more jobs, etc. And we look at the population forecast and use every single year, like freezers, they sponsor the screen all of you to view online during the summer. Where is our population going over the next 15, 20, 60 years? And this is for planning purposes. This is a planning tool for planning agencies, but it can be a planning tool for businesses. We're forecasting like 217,000 people moving to this state. 80% of that will be here in Southern Maryland. And again, we've been doing this since 1997. Because of that, because of this, we're thinking the water authority will apply this, and if they will come up with whether it's incentives or rules or projects that they work on to ensure that the water supply matches this population forecast. Of course, we average it out a little bit because year be very volatile. Now, one thing that we are concerned about, next slide, please. Populations. So right now, in the state of Nevada, right, there's 3.1 million people, so we need 3.3 million in 10 years. There is, of course, two strengths in it. We know as well. It's land and water. We can't really control those things, right? It's about the negotiations going on for the Colorado Compact, and then the negotiations in Congress about federally managed land. And that is the constraint. I will tell you, we build our model. It's not built into our model on purpose. And I get this question all the time. Why don't you put it in your model? Because the way that Southern Maryland Water Authority, Regional Planning Coalition, county-wide is if you remove those barriers, what will be our ideal population? Yes. And then how allows them to plan and go out and advocate, say, we need more land, we need more water, we always need utilities, and work on that. Well, one concern about this year's population forecast, there's one slide, is that we're still growing 260,000 more people, additional people in the state of the next 10 years. It's also our lowest forecast in the last 6+ years. Actually, this is the great financial crisis. And there are a lot of factors in there. One, like the United States, with an aging population, our growth minus deaths are increasing, or basically it will be negative by the mid-2030s. So you have more deaths than births naturally from natural growth in the population. Two, we get a lot of migration here. We call it domestic migration. We were talking about the moving within the United States. We're still a very popular place. Last year, Nevada was the 6th fastest growing state in the country. We're still very popular, but we're going to change the immigration policy. Now we have, that was counting for 2/3 migration, international migration. That's gone away. So that's also driving a lower number of this. So we're still growing, it's all relative. Compared to the rest of the country, we will continue to grow in population. So that's a good thing, but it is not going to be the same growth rates we have expected and seen over the last, say, 20, 30 years. So that's a concern too. You're planning as business, as a government agency. So what else, John Gates? This is for the US. We just got ADP yesterday. We'll get the jobs report tomorrow for August for the US. But we can see that the jobs picture, when we get out of the markets and we get out of the top line of GDP, how are people getting home, our businesses hiring, to me that's the sign of confidence that businesses are going to take the risk. How do they show them so that they could expand their business? Well, the job picture is a little more nuanced. And so part of this that we're monitoring the national and we talked about the balance is the jobs over the last 18 months kind of hit a stagnation where they are not growing, they're not shrinking. Yeah, some of the month level, you can see there's a lot of volatility. You can see at the start of the year, it seemed like we actually over the first 3-4 months had very strong hiring because businesses waited last year to expand, and they were like, I've got to make the move, I've got to hire. And they finally made that decision at the beginning here, but then we reverted back to where we were last year. And what they were paying attention to is the majority of the jobs are healthcare. Healthcare is a very different cycle than other parts of the economy, as you all know, whether it's in the home building industry or it's in leisure hospitality and economy. Now, here in Nevada, we've done much better. We have the fastest growth rate over 11 months compared to the rest of the country. And you can see is why is that? Because last year, the nation went through much more of a slump. While we kind of managed, despite all of the concern about tourism, to maintain those jobs. We didn't see quite the same fall in hiring as the rest of the country. But a lot of those jobs were mimicking the national front were in healthcare. So that's where we're seeing jobs in Nevada also grow last year was stimulating in healthcare. But this year it's been a little bit more different. Next slide, please. So this is for the state. What's growing here are professional business services. That can be anything from accountants to lawyers, but it also includes temp workers, it includes some repair and manufacturing and IT, it's a broad category. That continues to drive our economy compared to the rest of the nation. And then health services continues to be very strong. But you can see it's a little more broad-based, and it gives me a lot of optimism locally that we're actually weathering some of this turbulence a little bit better than the rest of the country because of the projects in the construction continues to do well. Now, that may be tied to the timing of certain projects, right? We have the Hard Rock being built, right? We have the A Stadium, and you're going to go visit them, right? That's the next slide, please. And this, we go back one. Yeah, I just wanted to show you for Vegas, it's always looking through. Just bear with me. In Vegas, we're growing professional business services, we're growing in healthcare. What's different for Reno is they're growing in construction and they're growing in transportation, warehousing, and manufacturing. And you can see that's that diversification plan, right? That's been going on there for the last 10 years. Well, we're talking about it, surprisingly driven again by the professional business services. A lot of that I think is coming from California. We're getting the businesses from California, no offense to our from California, but we're getting the businesses from California. And we're getting also the demand signal for healthcare. And it is right. What I do want to keep in mind though, the main driver of our economy is still major hospitality. We still forecast it to grow. As I'm showing here, this is our employment forecast for the next 10 years. But it is not going to be the main driver of this economy over the next 10, 15 years as it has in the past. Professional, scientific, and technical services, we believe, will continue to be the main driver. Same with healthcare. Ambulatory services is your primary healthcare services. So you go to specialists, right? If you look at growth, these are just growth rate, manufacturing, that's because this year we finally added bulk automation in our model. Because I don't, until I get a shelf on the ground, I'm not adding to the model. There's lots of comments that they demand about building things. I'd like to see the shelf and the seal. Once I do that, we've added the model. We do think that will make a difference in the economy. But then just for the same too, that we believe in the north, in our friend up north in Reno will continue to grow. But they're also going to grow, they have not growth in streets warehousing. So a lot of the warehousing, big warehousing you're seeing for whether it's Amazon or Walmart or the big retailers. And that's where they've seen a lot of growth for them. Next slide. And wages. So this is the concerning part, right? Real wages, we can take into account inflation. One thing to keep in mind is about 3 quarters later in the US to get back to positive real wages. And inflation was high in 2022, 2023, and 2024. Remember, the way I think about inflation compared to the normal person is I think about the rate of change. Everyone else and myself, including my roads, are cares about the price. What is the price compared to the previous one? So for economists, think about the rate. So we're looking at the rate compared to the rate increase in wages. In the US recently, both the US and the Nevada have dipped and it's negative. And that is because we have, persistent inflation. I mean, the supply shock, they continue, whereas the diesel prices being up about 58%, gasoline prices, that is feeding into the economy. There's 6,000 products tied to the price of oil. So it doesn't just feed into what you pay for transportation, but it also feeds into the products. Next slide. This is our visitor volume forecast over tourism. We think things will be a little bit better this year than last year. Some of this is strip correcting itself. Again, this is the main driver for our economy. Statewide, this is 0.5 jobs, half the state budget, and current GDP. So we do know this is very important. We think things will correct a little bit. Where I would like to see this though is our efforts around 42 million. I'd love to see us figure out, see those numbers get back to beating records. As they were actually surprisingly, the volume business after the Great Recession, both were in there. But we're kind of stuck between this 38.5 to 40 million visitors a year. And if you want more details on that, we can talk about it offline. Next slide. But gaming continues to be very strong nationwide. I think the number I saw from sports betting alone, something like $150 billion reflected nationwide now. Sports betting is pretty incredible given that. We were the only state that realized sports betting not less than 10 years ago. Go ahead. Next slide, thank you. But I do like to preface this being the economist and always so specific. You go have to adjust for inflation. So when the RSG comes out with the monthly numbers about gaming being another record or being above $1 billion, we're not accounting for inflation. Costs of paying for sports betting entities. They have to also be on costs. So inflation is being, and look at that, it's been the same number since the Great Recession. So that's the platinum. So if you think about that, where are they getting the revenue? It's got to come from other places, vehicle, entertainment, and sports, which is why they push into these other categories. Next slide. How am I doing for time? Am I good? Okay, trying to listen. Thank you. This is our housing forecast. I was going to references. I went on to housing. That's my collation employee. You can always I can talk a little bit more about housing specifically. We do a forecast in house price because it's an important part of our economy. We do think housing prices will continue to soft over the next 2 years, given that we think interest rates are going to stay relatively high over the next 2 years. Short-term interest rate, which also ties in a little bit more than the long-term interest rates, which is very year. And so that's something that we're going to have to work out. I don't think it's crashing, but I do think that it certainly is. The pricing is going to be sour, and it's going to be a little more of a buyer's market, but then for the buyers, given that where we are with interest rate. Next slide. The K-shaped economy is alive and well. 10 years ago, 75% of the customers who came to Vegas had a household income less than $100,000. Today, 75% of individuals who come to Las Vegas have a household income of over $1,000. And 44% of all visitors have a report having household income of $150. So that is what is driving the volume is down. If you look at their ADR and their RevPAR, the numbers that are measuring per available room, their revenue, they're doing very well there still. And you can see that in the prices that they charge in some of these places. Yes, they have the discounts for the Excalibur and Hera and whatnot that you could have last year, the Arias and that, the Win, it's very expensive. You're like, hey, these prices. Sometimes because it's flying well. We see the private ship continue to increase, 5% year over year to 8, just in the first quarter, landing and Harry. The domestic is down. Now I want to preface this on 2 things. One, we've got the issue with our presence in the North with Canadians. They're very mad at us. It was down 24% in visitor from Canada last year, and it's already down another 25% this year. Canadian visitation. That is our number one market for international visitors. They love Las Vegas. Why? Because they come here, they stay longer. They usually will only come to Vegas. Sorry, California, they may not go to the beach, right? They'll take here for 4 or 5 days compared to other international travels. And then they'll go home. They love Las Vegas. That is the issue. Part of the increase of the method rate is variant. Sure, about this variant lines. Travel it. Now it's probably why the domestic invitations are down. They moving and goodness. All right. Next. It is, but if you can look at the affordability concerns, they are absolutely increasing. What it is doing tertile, is starting to also recognize that the costs are getting under control. So for the rest of the average human being going out and spending money in the U.S. economy, they have felt it for some time now since the end of the pandemic, and that's where you see the frustration. The thing is, because economists were trying to put 2 and 2 together is why we keep spending money. And well, part of this is where else you're going to go. You're already, shopping at the dollar store. You're already figuring out ways that you can save coffee, cooking coupons. You're doing whatever you can to save your money and not have costs go up. And yet you still got to pay for gasoline. You still got to make a mortgage payment, and you still have to pay, help your kids with their schooling and things that cost money to save after school or saving for their education. Next slide, please. Just some things on AI and automation. Does that? Oh, and by the way, so buy now, pay later. Some people are working institutions to the edge of all IAT and just keep an eye on how students are paying for all, especially if they are not, we're basically seeing that buy now, pay later is used in addition to the Amazon credit card, where they go to buy now, pay later. And it's typically a lower income bracket. It's surprisingly more higher than the default rate on the buy now, pay later. But this is an increasing tool that people are using to get by and make their, being able to buy, whether it's a household necessity or just make it get by. But it's a concern for all of us because they're not regulated the same way as credit cards. We don't see all the data as BT and credit cards and credit debt or auto loans and housing. There's a lot of good research that's out there about this from KPMG to be created occasionally on different things. So then we're being taken with us. This is return in all the year average consumer income. Average household income that is 80,000. Nominally, real adjusted return after inflation is actually closer to 17,000. Next slide. goals in here. Just quickly on the topic that we will talk about, are we seeing signs in the Southern Valley or the Valley economy? We have a survey that we put out to businesses at the beginning of August, and employees for both of them, asking employers and employees how they engagement or at least that outlook. But there's kind of competing narratives. We've heard from some comments that were ground zero for automation. We hear from people buying up MGM, like Mr. Barry Taylor saying we're AI proof. That's going to be the big phenomenon. I don't economists. I like to think that augmentation and labor productivity plus consumption will go up with AI if there's the right incentives in place to be published and paradigms. Essentially, if it goes get cheaper, we consume more of it. Plus, our values will change in what we value when we consume. Plus, you think about, we might also be a little bit smarter and be a little more productive ourselves, and therefore increases our ability. But I also know there's going to be a lot of disruption and we'll get into data centers. Next slide. And so just lastly, to say the three things that probably keep you at value. One, if we take away one assumption, like the stock market, do the KJ still exist? So we take away that assumption, that's a concern about just get that move out to that economy very quickly with spending on strip or on the retail of our casinos. Affordability, the continued grind of a comparisons and the fact that inflation stays higher for longer. That the yield rate, and also their interest rate staying higher for longer. That's a real concern about the grind of our paychecks getting less and less, and that's something that takes time. So even though we're feeling it now, the point is that you're not gonna put on your market thing. We've all grown up in town, we can't spend anymore. That's the trend. And the third is policy volatility. I think we've seen that for several years in a row, the volatility coming out of whether it's from our state capitals or national capitals, it does impact all of us, and over time there's also around on the confidence of the business to take risk and empower people and employees and consumers to go out and spend money. I think two things throughout TV is we do have a look on, we do this every year, 2.5 hours, so love free rolling time. We do this before our keynote is Mary Daly, President, CEO of Federal Reserve Bank in San Francisco. She'll be talking about the Fed. And then one more. If you like what we see, we have a free newsletter. It's 5 minutes, our students write it. I edit it. It goes out every Monday. 3 articles about the economy, 3 paragraphs. You can sit for the way. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that presentation and for what's up in some time. We'll check for a while. Direct comment on that. Any board members public comment with regard to something? Very much, thank you. With that, I'm pleased to introduce Gabriel Stevenson, California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development for the Representation in California.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about a few things, obviously California related. So I'm very happy to be talking with everybody today. So I'm going to make this fast. Just so you know, I'm going to put in my email address. I have a whole team of people that would be more than happy to go into more depth and details about everything that we discussed today. GoBiz is the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. The entire reason this office was created is to create more jobs for Californians. And what we realize, it's not just about job creation, it's also about offering total support services to businesses that want to site here, that want to expand and grow here. So we not only do site selection and incentive navigation with my team in this office, but we also have a permitting team. So we can help streamline, we can help just really break through a lot of the confusion and talk to the agencies directly, help the businesses directly, and make sure it's an easier process. We also have an international team. We've got people in different countries right now, and it helps really improve our ability to sell products and be more visible across the entire world. Okay, I'm gonna go back one. So this is my team. We have people in every different region throughout the state, and they are in region because No one in Reading wants to hear, be told by someone in Sacramento what to do or how to help. So we have people who are in the region, who are from the region, and it makes our job a lot better and a lot easier. And we create better partnerships. So when we need to cite a new business, we instantly activate our regional business development partners, and we just have a lot better access to every part of this incredibly large state. So California being the fourth largest economy in the world, we kind of looked back a few years ago and said, we don't really have an economic development plan. So we created the State Economic Blueprint, our Jobs First plan. It is the first economic development plan the state of California has had in almost 20 years. We released it in early 2025, and we have been working on implementation ever since. It's not a book that just sits on a shelf and gets dusty. It's something we have actually used, implemented. We've put hundreds of millions of dollars of funds into regions to do very region-based plans. We want to make sure that we not only support job creation, but regional economic development growth in every single region of the state, but the way that region wants to do it. Some want to do it with more manufacturing. We're the #1 manufacturing state in the country, but some want to do more manufacturing jobs. Some really want to be more based on tech and innovation. Silicon Valley is the innovative economy of this country. So we want to make sure that we invest in the sectors that help each region and propel further job growth. So this plan is based, like I said, on economic factors and what the regions really want. We know that we have a great creative economy. We are obviously big on manufacturing and film and tourism. But then we say, okay, what industries do we really want to accelerate? Aerospace and defense is a monster for the state of California. We've seen a lot of increased growth in that sector. Life sciences, working lands and water, and clean economy. So we spend a lot of effort on those four, just the ag tech, life sciences, aerospace and defense, and our clean economy. But that orange section is incredibly important, right? Because you need infrastructure. We need to make sure we have the energy, the transportation, healthcare, childcare. We want to make sure we have all of those to support everything that we do in our strength and accelerate and our bet economies. So far, it has been 18 months of implementation, and we are now starting to see these projects come alive that people have worked on for, some of them have been working on them for years. So we not only support them with some money and direct funds through the Jobs First, we just put out our second round of implementation funds last week. We made a big announcement on Mare Island, for example. They are getting about $8 million plus to do some maritime strategic planning and workforce development. There's a huge maritime training center in Danville, Virginia. We kind of want to replicate that, but upgrade and see, there's so much new technology with autonomous vessels and shipbuilding and so many other repair needed throughout military and commercial uses. So that's one project that will be implemented with funds from not only Jobs First, but we also have a regular toolbox of incentives, and we're going to go through some of these. But again, please know that I'm going through these quickly because no one ever has, said, oh man, I hope we get into the weeds and we could talk about this for hours and hours. You guys have a long agenda today. So we're going to go by really quickly, but you know how to reach me. And I have a whole team of people who will go through these things, project specific or any direct questions. But of interest, just making sure California Competes is one of our, kind of our big, I would say one of our largest, most effective uses of our incentives. It is a tax credit, but it's based on how much are you investing in the state? How many people are you going to hire? We want to help support that. We do a lot with project-based and just other construction-related businesses. So it really depends on the situation, but Cal Competes can get up to some big dollars. We do have a new credit, a tax credit limit coming in 2027 for 3 years, but it will not affect low-income housing tax credits, for example. So there are still ways to do a capital stack on certain builds. Employment training panel, probably one of my favorite incentives that we have in the state. We obviously are big on education. We have 140 plus community colleges. We have the UC system, the CSU system, and any number of, we've got all the national labs and a lot of other institutions. So our workforce is very important. And the employment training panel, when we work with a company, we'll do a dollar for dollar match on, upskilling and training employees. We've got a phenomenal system of partners up and down the state. We have, for example, one beverage manufacturing company that I'm talking to, they want to build more lines out, but they know that they need more people, not only to work the lines, but also to deal with the lines themselves. Some of them are automated in robotics. So they've asked if we could build them a robotics training certification program with our community college in the area. That's already being done. Like before they're even permitted for the rest of the equipment and to build out the lines, we've already put that in place. And they're going to get a dollar for dollar match on anything they put forward for that training. So a couple other things there. But otherwise, in general, R&D. And again, who are you building for? What is the project going to be used for? There are lots of tax credits besides, Cal Competes, we'll go over more time, but we have an R&D tax credit. It's really for applied research, advanced engineering, any business function along those lines. And again, we walk through a lot of these we'll go through the NAICS code, we'll go through your use case. We also have a partial sales tax exemption. This is not competitive. It's really based on the NAICS code, and then everybody just takes it off their taxes. It's totally open year round. Full sales tax exclusion, however, is very competitive. This year, we only had $100 million, and I think those will be awarded soon. This is one where Lockheed Martin, Tesla, Bosch Semiconductor, and many others have used it not once, but twice or more. And it's a very helpful tax exclusion, especially when purchasing equipment. California Competes, like I said, I think we have about 800 million in the pot. So we have a robust round going on right now. But again, it really goes down to how much are you investing in the state? How many jobs are you creating? Our economic development rate, obviously, the electricity prices are going up everywhere, but we still have one of the higher rates in the country. And our partnerships with the utilities make it a lot easier for companies to come and expand and grow or, have new operations here. So we can work with our utility partners, PG&E, SCE, SDG&E, and then a lot of the other publicly owned utilities and the CCAs, they all have some sort of an incentive program. For Bosch, for example, Semiconductor in Roseville, they got a $10 million credit on their utility bill. The city gave them another $25 million. We set up a training program with 2 high schools and the community college, plus they got Cal Competes, plus they got CADFA. We really want to invest in their success because that semiconductor facility is state of the art, and it's employing a lot of people with some high skilled labor jobs. So they got an economic development rate, even though it's not with the IOU, it's with City of Roseville. So we can get pretty creative with a lot of that. Employment training panel, I've already mentioned. Like I said, it's wonderful because you create your own training program and it gets, you approve your system. We just want to back you up with some funding and also help find the partners to make it a more successful program and to ensure that you have a pipeline of the best skilled labor possible. ETP is also wonderful because they also can connect you to any number of sources that are listed here. We have a robust apprenticeship system, and we want to make sure that we are working with high school, community college, all the technical training institutions, and beyond. It's a really important process for us to make sure our labor is ready to rumble in any sort of sector. Cal Gold, we have a new permitting site that's in-house for GoBiz, and we have refined this over the years so many times, and I think it's now in a good place. So what happens is it will give you a list. For example, this is a company in San Diego, building division, and this shows you all of the permits that you're going to need to use for any type of, I can't remember what business is, what did I say it was? Nope, I forget. Anyway, it gives you the list, and again, we can help. We make a lot of calls. We help streamline the process and, answer a lot of questions, especially with our regional partners. So that is what I had for you guys. I'm going to pop because I know you guys are running a little behind schedule, and my information is there. Our website is right here, and we're always open to talk about any project or any ideas that you have. Just come in, give me a call, send me an email. I'm available.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Gabrielle.
You're welcome.
Learned a lot. Are there any California board members wishing to comment? Any members of the public here online? Great. Back to you, Chair Hall.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for the presentation. Whole presentation was great. Thank you for the information. The next item on the agenda focuses on licensure pathways, technological updates, and approaches to improving access while preserving consumer safeguards. Topics that will be discussed will be online applications, translating exams and other materials, applicant workshops, B2 pathway, the general ability contractor in California, and B7 restricted licenses in Nevada, and NSCB licensing administrator Susan Boyley-Camish and CSLB Chief Carol Gannon will lead the discussion to provide an overview. So,
Our microphone is missing. We'll talk loud.
oh, so get her.
Somebody took it. I know where it is. So we'll project.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
So we're going to do this half and half, one at a time. Online application modernization first. So in California, building on the success of CSLB's online renewals, which allow contractors to pay by credit card and submit workers' compensation insurance information electronically, CSLB contracted with a private vendor to develop an online solo owner application modeled after the TurboTax experience. The goal was to reduce the approximately 40% applicant return rate that occurred when applications completed a fillable PDF by hand. I'm pleased to report that the online application, which was launched June 29th of this year, is off to a strong start. There are currently 1,200 applications in the pipeline, and 201 have been completed, submitted, paid for, gone through, and are at my technicians' desks. It appears some of the applications with that other 1,000 might have been abandoned or are awaiting additional information from the applicant before we can go ahead. Additional information is typically the work certification forms that California requires that have to be uploaded into the program before they can pay for it, sign it, and submit it. CSLB intends to expand this modernization effort by automating the remaining license application types in the future, including corporation, LLC, partnership, and joint venture applications.
All right. Hi, I'm Susan Boyley-Camish. I'm with the Nevada State Contractors Board Licensing Administrator, and I'm in Reno normally. So hi, it's nice to be in Vegas. So I do not have that much detail. So on item number 1, for Nevada, we only have 2 online applications, and that is our new license application, which covers all entity types. It sounds like that's a little different than California. We also offer renewals online. We are currently entering into a data migration, so I'm hoping to get all of those applications online within the next 2 years. So that's my goal. So 1 year, hopefully 1 year, but maybe 2. Number 2.
All right, translating exams. That's our next exciting project. So CSLB, we currently write and maintain all of our examinations in-house. We have translated and adapted 10 of those, our most popular exams, into Spanish, a process that involves not only translation, but workshops with our bilingual exam specialist and bilingual subject matter experts in the trade, reviewing each question to make sure it asks what it was originally intended to in the English version. With many languages, a word-for-word translation just isn't enough, as there are words that don't translate directly into another language. Therefore, the adaptation process to develop the exam kind of gets at the meaning of each question. About 20% of our examinations administered each month are Spanish language exam, so they are very popular. CSLB has also translated the application instructions for 3 of our biggest applications into Spanish, and an additional 4 sets of instructions are currently in the translation process. Test development management is exploring options for temporary staffing or leveraging an existing contract with PSI to support Spanish exam translation services. The goal is to begin translation of an additional 14 trade exams into Spanish, further expanding accessibility for Spanish-speaking applicants.
All right, so for Nevada, we have 15 exams that have been translated into Spanish, and that includes our CMS exam. In total, we have 80 exams in Nevada. So that's how many classifications require a trade exam. So there's 80 separate exams. So it's going to be a large lift for us to get all of those translated, but we do use PSI. So PSI is doing that for us. I don't have the stats on how many exams are in Spanish. I don't think how many are taken in Spanish so far. It's not a high number. It's kind of, I'm not sure word's gotten out yet. So once word gets out, I'm sure we'll have more numbers. We have all of our printed brochures available in Spanish. They're available in print and they're available on our web in Spanish. We also, our website translates into Spanish. There was a survey done in Nevada. The #1 language spoken after English is Spanish. So that's why we're focusing on Spanish right now. As we get this all dialed in, we may consider more languages. Tagalog, I think, is the next one spoken in Nevada. So it's going to be another lift for us. It may be Mandarin, I can't remember. But anyway, on to #3.
All right, so #3 is applicant workshops. CSLB, we have provided monthly Get Licensed to Build workshops for at least 8 years here in California. This is online. We do some in person. The program originally began as a joint effort between enforcement and public affairs, and then it moved to licensing and public affairs somewhere around 2019. Since then, we continue to offer the English language workshop every month, averaging between 40 and 60 attendees. In 2022, we expanded. We began to include a Spanish language workshop for all of those Spanish language candidates we know we have out there. These are also offered monthly, and between 15 and 20 people attend these workshops each month. Not only is the presentation in Spanish, but I have a bilingual employee who's there to answer questions if they have questions that come up during a workshop, so they're not having to send an email and get an answer later. Recordings of both workshops are available 24/7 on CSLB's YouTube channel and are easily accessible through the licensing workshop page, allowing candidates to view them at their convenience. CSLB is currently exploring opportunities to conduct trade-specific workshops, like Dave was mentioning earlier, perhaps in landscaping, in collaboration with trade associations and other industry partners. And it's something we're interested in expanding to.
Hey, for Nevada, we have 2 assistance, well, we have 3. We have the contractor license application business assistance program. That's for new applicants. We have the licensed contractor business assistance program. That's for people who have a license and they want to make changes to it. So we also have a veterans assistance program. So that's a very specific program. So it's not really part of these programs, but our programs currently, we offered them in person monthly for 16 years. Our turnout was about 18 people per meeting. So recently this year, we kind of took a agency-wide effort to move those all online. So you're going to find those on our website now. They're available 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So anybody can look at them whenever they want. We do not have them in Spanish, but we have multiple Spanish speakers in our office. So we're always available all time of day. In Reno, I think we have 5 Spanish language speakers, Spanish and English. In our Las Vegas office, I know there's at least 2. So we do have good coverage for Spanish just in our staff. We also offer a pre-application assistance program, and this was kind of set up maybe a year ago. And that is if somebody just wants us to take a look at their application before they submit it and say, hey, do I have all my stuff? Let me know what I'm missing. We will do that. We'll spend a half an hour with that person on the phone, on Zoom, in person, however they want to do it. And we'll go over page by page the application, make sure they have all their documents. This is not the time for us to review your experience, your references, your resume, your financial statement. We don't go into that kind of detail. We just make sure you have all of your documents. So when you submit that application, hopefully the process is quicker for you because we won't have to go back so many times. That's what drags down our processing times is the going back and forth with our applicants because they don't send us required information. So this program has helped, I think, have better and more complete applications. So anybody have any questions so far? No,
We threw it at you really
Number four.
quick. We're aware of the bus, guys.
That's right.
And we're here. All right, so the last topic on our joint licensing presentation is for California. We have a B2 residential remodeling trade that we came up with. We created this trade and released it in August of 2021. Since then, 1,673 licenses have been issued in this trade. Now, the original purpose of our B2 residential remodeling was to create a pathway to licensure for people who were doing multiple trades, but didn't have the structural or framing experience necessary to qualify for a B general building license. Now, the B2s have started to ask for a pathway. They want to add a B general building classification to their license. Currently, what we tell them is they've got three choices. You can go to work for a B for a few years and get the necessary experience. You could add an RMO to your company who already holds that B classifications, or you can do a joint venture with a B company to do a larger project. Something we're considering that we've discussed at recent board meetings is creating a limited structural certification. Now, the idea is that that B2, who has already been licensed for at least 2 years, will be able to apply for and take the exam for this limited structural certification. Once they add it to their license, they would be allowed to build sheds, garages, pergolas, patio covers, greenhouses, and the like on residential properties. So this would help them gain that structural experience to qualify for a B license, but it would mean they cannot build ADUs, room additions, or any other structure that someone will live in. Now, a survey of the B2s conducted last fall indicated that about 80% are interested in this pathway to add a B license to their classification. So if this structural certification goes into law and even 30% of those B2s apply for it, that'd be 502 people taking this exam and adding that certification to their license. Our thought is that after 2 years of work with that new structural certification, then they'd be able to apply to add the B general building classification to their license, and then they can expand their business. We're still working on the specifics of the plan and hope to see an author for it next fall, winter, to go into the next legislative session.
All right, so those in Nevada know about our B7 restricted. This was a idea in the last session, and that license has really, I think it's opened the door for those who are contracting without a license, doing the home remodels. So on the B7, so we currently have a B7, which is our residential remodeling classification. That existed already. B7 restricted is a lower limit. So there's a $7,000 limit. So in Nevada, we have monetary limits. They can't contract for anything over $7,000. They have a $2,000 bond. They have to have an 8-hour business class taken within the prior year in order to qualify for that B7. They also have to have 2 years of experience, which is different. For the rest of our classifications, they have to have 4 years of experience working for a licensed contractor. So what our thought was here is they have 2 years of experience to get this B7 restricted, and then they work for 2 years, which is our biennial renewal, and then they'll have 4 years by the time their first renewal is done. So then they can apply to broaden that to the full B7 unrestricted, or they could maybe apply for the B2, broaden it to the B2. So a couple different pathways for them to get licensed. We're just trying to catch those people that are kind of working on the fringes, and I think it's working. Our application just got done maybe 5 months ago, so we don't have a lot of applicants yet. We had 21 in the pipeline 2 weeks ago. We had already issued 9. One of the concerns that I was looking online, and I think I'm going to try to change the language, because right now, if you look at B7 residential remodeling, it's very similar to how it looks B7 restricted residential remodeling. So I'm trying to make that restricted like in bold or full caps, so the public can see that that's not a full license. That is a restricted license. I'm working on that right now. Let's see. We have heard from our state government that there's possibly going to be an increase in the need for housing in the rural activities to support mining. So we are preparing to try to kind of work with our government, our state government, to try to figure out ways to assist in that. We're very at the beginning stages of that right now, but we are looking at that in the future because we think there's going to be an increase in housing out there. So
Anybody have any questions? All right, who's ready to get on the bus? That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Both of you for the presentation. We have a comment from the California Board member. A comment from the call. Thank you very much. Open by everybody here, Paul.
Thank you, Chair Guy. Thanks again, Ms. Cameron. Appreciate the no rush and wind. Thank you very much for your comments. As we conclude today's meeting, I'd like to ask if there's anyone present to offer public comment. If so, please come up to the mic. And with seeing none, we move on. On behalf of the state, the Nevada State Contractors Board and staff, we again wish to thank our colleagues from California to the continued opportunity to connect and discuss topics of mutual interest across our states. I'd also like to thank all the presenters for sharing their team expertise and valuable insights, and also to Susan Schmonkai for providing the training facility for our meeting today. Very nice of them. And I hope everyone found value in the information shared today as we continue to collaborate and learn from one another and advance the goals of our respective agencies. Again, I've been part of these. I think this is my third or fourth meeting, and I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time. And I know as a board, we appreciate all the insight that you do provide. Obviously, your ship's a little bigger than ours, so it's great to learn from what you guys were building in bigger space. We do appreciate it, Jim. Before I turn it over here, I'd like to make the announcement that Dan Whitmarsh, who's sitting right here, will be taking over as our executive officer September 14th. So I just want to introduce him, and I appreciate you taking the time to come up and visit with us this week, and more importantly, spending the time in California. It's just a once in a while opportunity, and I do really speak for the board. Thank you for coming. So appreciate that. And before I turn it over to you, Chair Guy, I have to for adjournment, I have to ask if we can request a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lay, for the first. And again, thank you, Mr. Lay, for the second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Chair Guys, your floor.
Thank you, Chair Paulus. This concludes our board business for today in California. Before we adjourn, I want to thank the Nevada board staff for a strong working relationship. That has been developed over the last 17 years. We always appreciate getting together with you guys at all. Great host. It was a pleasure meeting Dan last night at dinner. I think we'll do a great job for you guys. So appreciate it. Look forward to hosting you guys next year in California. With that, I have a motion to do adjourn.
Second.
Any adjourn? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That's looking crazy.